Right off the bat, we've got a full set today, which is great. Two open slots for tomorrow for tonight, and a bunch of open slots for tomorrow if anyone wants them. We can get right into this. Interesting games. I've gotten a minute or two to review them. Thank you all very much for being here, and thanks for joining the stream. This one was sent by Math Lover. This is a Rui Lopez game. It ends up being a win for Black. But we can go through some of the theory here. It goes pretty deep into kind of established Rui Lopez theory. Here D5, martial attack is what this is, and overall pretty interesting stuff. Knight takes. Hey, good morning, Aphelion. Thanks for joining the stream. Rook takes e5, c6, d4, bishop d6. And, this basically is sort of like a standard martial attack type game. White, has a difficult to defend open king side. I did get a haircut. I got a haircut. Thanks. I got a haircut today. It had been like months since I'd gotten one, so I figured I'd get one today. So this is it's basically a martial attack game. By this point it's pretty much over. The queen, is better than the bishop. This tactical trap right here is sort of what decides the game. But I think there's a lot of instructive stuff in terms of opening theory and just general general analysis of the martial attack. I don't know super well. I don't know super well this opening, but I guess we can figure it out. D5, ex d5, knight x d5, knight x e5, knight x e5, rook takes, and then there's another divergent point for Black. But here, we're basically showing equality. It's an interesting game. Basically, Black has opened the position with his d5 before White's d4 is played. That's kind of the main characteristic of the martial attack. This can get pretty dangerous, aggressive attacking positions. This pawn can be taken, and then the knight can take the e5 pawn. That's the straightforward response to this. There's two lines here, so either knight takes, which definitely allows knight takes e5, or e4, which is basically another line where White will eventually win the e pawn, but it's a little bit less clear. So I'm sort of curious about this. D takes c6, ex f3, and then the choices for White are either queen takes f3 or d4. I don't know. I basically don't have strong preferences here. Hey, welcome to this the chat, Pixon. Thanks for joining the stream. And just wanted to reiterate for anybody who's listening, basically we have open slots for tonight. So if anyone wants to send them, we have at least two. They don't have to be game. They don't have to be games. They could just be opening analysis. Opening analysis is always good. I could use more of it myself. So if anyone has anything that they'd like us to look at, please send, and we'll get to it tonight for sure. Two open slots, at least for the time being, until someone recommends something on Discord or something like that. So here, this is the move order that leads into the martial attack. Hey, thanks, Jack. I appreciate it. Definitely a different take. It had been like months since I'd gotten my last one, so this is I think this is an improvement. Still takes a moment for me to recognize myself. So, anyways, So on knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, standard Rui Lopez, b5, bishop d3, c3, and so this is the standard Rui Lopez game. And then of the choices here, d6 is the most common. But a 10% and very playable alternative is D4. Yeah, I'm vaccinated. I'm in New York City, so they got us vaccines pretty quick. I did. Yeah, no, no, for sure. No, I pulled your game, Aphelion. So we've got that one. I was planning to look at that. I think second slot tonight. But we still have a good number of we still have a good number of slots open. So if anyone wants to see either an opening that they're interested in seeing or a game of theirs reviewed, we can do that. But yeah, so this martial attack, interesting. D5, E takes D5, or D6. D6 is basically the main line. Morphe defense, closed defense is, I guess, what that's called. But much more passive. D5 here, EX D5, knight takes D5, knight takes, rook takes, and then C6 and potentially D4. White has a number of options here. But the defining move of the martial attack is this D5. Pawn takes, knight takes, and then yeah. No, it's totally cool. I'm always happy to go through these opening theories. We can go through to any depth. I mean, if it's what people are interested in, I'm super happy to look at it, and I get to learn a lot from it myself. So I can go into Traxler for a while. I might spend a little bit of time on how to sidestep some of the sharper things, just in case people are interested in learning that. But yeah, definitely can look more at some Traxler openings. So yeah, so knight d5, knight takes e5, rook takes e5, c6, d4, and rook and bishop to d6. These moves basically have pretty established, most commonly played lines. Rook e4 is the divergence in this game. Rook e4 here is a second opportunity. G5, queen f1, queen h5, knight d2, bishop f5, f3, rook knight f6. And basically, this is the type of opening where white is having to deflect an attack, but also has a positive eval. In this particular situation, a really playable opportunity is a4. This is based on this engine output. Rook e1, looks like the most kind of intuitive response to prevent losing material. But here, on like queen g2, which is the number 3 choice, if this pawn takes, or the knight takes, but basically exchanges in the center, basically neutralize black's attack. And with that neutralized attack, I mean, every trade makes the position safer for white. So basically, with that, with that exchange, white has a good center and good opportunities, a potential to play knight f6, and overall a pretty solid position for white. Anyways, this is pretty interesting. I think I would say that probably most martial attacks are kind of defined by this aggressive attacking on white's king side. That just seems to happen. But in exchange, white gets center control and this extra pawn, the black e pawn. But good center versus attacking chances for black, basically evaluated as equality after move 12. I'm wondering about this position here, like maybe rook e1, rook e2, rook e1. I was sort of looking at, I mean, I guess it's probably too easily attacked, but like I'm wondering if white can manage to not retreat his rook here. Options like bishop to g5 look pretty interesting. Bishop g5 is on this list, but not high on it. Rook e1. But basically, the characteristic of the martial attack is this center control for white, but aggressive attacking chances on the king side for black, at the cost of a one pawn. G5, queen f1, queen h5, knight d2. I'm sort of curious about this one. Yeah, totally. If you want to send a game, if you send it right now, we can get to it for tonight's stream stop clock. Thanks very much for, no, definitely please send it, and any material you guys are interested in sending, I'm totally interested in looking at. And also, I want to just emphasize, like, it doesn't have, I'm super happy to look over everyone's games if that's the most helpful thing. But also, if you're trying to learn an opening, or you're trying to, review what parts of an opening are working or not working for you, you can just tell me, like, look at we'll look at some random opening, look at King's Gambit with G5, and we'll definitely spend a slot on it for sure. Just another idea of things you guys can recommend, or a particular end game. These things I'm not, I benefit a lot from doing like end game review and opening review. So if you guys want to take a look at any of that kind of stuff at some point, that's just another option for something that we could look at, as a lesson. Anyways, but game review I'm totally comfortable with too. But yeah, really anything. I'm here, doing these lessons regardless. So whatever you guys are most interested in doing in terms of the lesson, I'm totally cool with. I could use a lot of practice myself in some of these things, particularly end games. If you guys want to look at any particular type of end game, I'm sort of, it's the type of thing that would be super helpful to me, actually, to like go through modern chess end games and pull out like a minor piece end game, or like a rook and pawn end game. That's the kind of stuff grandmasters know super well, but masters can get by with knowing somewhat less well. So anyways, yeah, if you guys if you guys are like, all right, take a look at this opening, this end game one day, I will absolutely give that a slot, and we can do that instead of a game analysis. But game analysis is fine too. Whatever you guys want to do. But anyways, this is getting back to this game, looking at the martial attack. Yeah, we can do that too. Yeah, if you guys want to play like a blitz game and we can just look over it on the stream after, I'm totally open to that too. It's another idea. But yeah, I want to be super flexible with these lessons. I want to make sure that I'm gonna do them regardless, and I'm just looking for new ideas, and whatever you guys are the most interested in, that's what I want to do. Because I think I learn a lot from pretty much everything, and I would just want to go with what's the most helpful. Anyways, this queen to f1, this queen to f1 move is enough to basically attack the queen and try to knock it off of the h3 square. I don't know. I'm sort of curious out of this martial attack. So this is an extremely common martial attack structure. There's a number of options for white here. I'm sort of wondering, because it's fast, Pixon. I think that's the solution, is just because, there's a number of German-descended words in chess, like Zwischenzug, and there's the other Z one. But yeah, it's fast time controls. That's why it's called Blitz. What's the other one? Zugzwang. So this, this is a very commonly played line. I'm sort of curious though, here, like, without d4, is there something that white can proactively do to kind of defend? Because, here white's already got a pawn, which should be, an almost winning kingside advantage, right? So d4, d3, bishop takes d5. I'm sort of wondering about bishop takes d5. Bishop takes d5 has the obvious problem that it's giving up your bishop pair super early, but it does trade off pieces in a position where black is likely to get attacked here. So like bishop takes, pawn takes, d4, bishop d6, and I feel like this might be a situation where yes, black has given basically black has given up a pawn, and then white has given up some of his positional edge. But like, I'm wondering here, like bishop d6, rook h5, maybe. It could be a more, a less aggressive. Yes, Dark Slide. Haircut this morning. Yeah, Yeah, my first one in like 3 months or so. So, um, yeah, but yeah. So bishop d6, and then either rook e1, rook e3, but rook e1 is the only one that maintains a positive eval. So here, I guess it's basically evaluating. White is up material, but black is up positionally. I guess this development is bad. You basically have like 5 pawns on the furthest back file. So White's development is sort of lacking. So it makes sense that Black has compensation for his material loss. But I guess this sort of just poses, or this sort of just demonstrates the problem of the martial attack. There's going to be some strong attacking here by Black, pretty much regardless of what you do. A4, D3, knight takes E5, knight takes E5, rook takes E5, C6. But yeah, I guess White's just going to sort of need tactically resourceful defense. You could go through and memorize this opening to line 25. I'm not sure if that's the most productive thing to do, but the thematic concepts, good tactically resourceful defense by White, and an attempt to hold on to the material advantage as opposed to giving it back, are sort of the defining features of this opening. It looks like this rook sacrifice is pretty well established in mainline theory. So here, this is a common this is a common situation, and the bishop sacrifice on like queen g2 is pretty sound. I mean, Black doesn't even accept it. So here, rook to e3, rook e8, and some good trading on on the e4 square. Simplify this position a lot for White, and give White basically an equal or favorable eval. It's a tough thing. It's a tough opening. Basically, it's a good alternative for Black in the Ruy Lopez. I play some weird Ruy Lopez lines. They work out well for me, but probably aren't the soundest. But this does provide an opportunity for Black to be the one who expands first in the... Yes, this is the first game, chess man. Yours is the second. Yours is coming right up, chess fan. But I just want to take a little bit longer on this one because I think the martial attack theory is actually pretty interesting. It seems like in the Ruy Lopez, it seems like White playing d4 is an inevitability. But playing d5 first is a way for White to or for Black to make him the one who controls this opening. It does end up sacrificing this pawn, this e5 pawn, but it's well compensated in response. White basically gets a quick basically Black gets a quick kingside attack. It's a gambit, basically. So it ends up being an opportunity and an opportunity for Black to attack. But yeah, really interesting stuff, and this game is a good demonstration of kind of how Black can end up capitalizing. The bishop to b1 move, but this game ultimately is decided on this tactic. Otherwise, here it's like relatively smooth sailing. This bishop f5 is what's the decisive characteristic of this game. Otherwise, I guess probably White's position got a little bit more open than it needed to be. But even here, White has simplified and holds a material advantage. With careful play here, I think White should be okay. King g2 is a move that improves the king. I'm thinking bishop d2 is probably also playable. I think probably longer term White wants to play moves that... Oh wait, the g3 pawn needs to be defended. So king to f2 here probably is best, or king to g2. But White basically can hold the material lead and trade off pieces to neutralize Black's attack. That's the thematic response to the martial attack. White does not need to give back a pawn. He can, and there's that opportunity with the rook in the center that's mainline theory, where he basically gives up the exchange in order for establishment of a good center. But here, white's doing just fine, and with careful defense, and simplification of the attack from black, white should be fine playing this game through without having to sacrifice any material. It's an interesting game. The one key error is this queen loss. Otherwise, it's a game basically, right? So chances for either side, and I don't know. Basically, a late middle game that both play. The winner will be the one who executes who executes better, who plays better chess from move 29 or so. Interesting game. Happy to look more at the martial attack. That is some interesting theory there, and yeah, really interesting. These openings are interesting. I haven't gotten an opportunity to play them because they're not the theory that I play. But it's a great opportunity for me actually to get to look at things that I've never played. Okay, cool. Chess Fans game is next. And by the way, thank you very much, Math Lover, for sending the game. Super interesting stuff, and yeah, please keep sending them. Martial attack theory, interesting, good alternative for black. Makes black basically the attacker in in the Ruy Lopez, and wards off an early d4 expansion by white by sacrificing a pawn for an attack. Interesting idea. Cool. And this one is Chess Fan's game. Chess Fan, were you white or black in this game? I just want to make sure. This is you were playing black, right? So yeah, so this is going to show basically a really oh, this isn't. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, my fault. You're playing black in this one. Sorry, I'll flip those. I'll do this one. Sorry about that. Thanks for saying something. It's always super helpful if I make any. I'm very able to make errors here, and still figuring a lot of things out for the stream. So yeah, if I make any errors, thanks for correcting me, Chess Fan. But yeah, no, say something quickly, because it's easier. It's easier now than 5 minutes from now when I'm sort of in the middle of a new one. But thanks for please catch my errors. I will make plenty. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Not offended at all. Appreciate the help. If I'm ever making mistakes. But yeah, so this is an interesting. So bishop b6 is your prep, so we can focus on that. This is a queen's pawn game, semi-Slav, right? With this, there's no Slav, I guess. C6, full Slav C6. D takes C4, A4, bishop F5, E3, E6, and bishop takes C4. And basically, I like black's position here, to be honest. This looks pretty solid. Black does benefit for sure from having this pawn on d5. It's the strongest pawn in black's structure. But even after neutralizing and trading this d5 pawn for this c4 pawn, this structure is solid for black. The d5 pawn is better than the c4 pawn, so that's a trade that at the end of the day probably is better for white. But this is a solid structure that white can't easily attack. Bishop b5, castles, queen b3, a5, and this this is just solid. I mean, basically, this white square diagonal doesn't offer much value to white. Maybe ideas of knight d7, knight b6, knight d5. Pretty much, I like black's position. It's very sturdy here. Hard for white to really get into or to make a solid material gain from. I sort of like c5. Alternatives: bishop d6, bishop e7. Let's see the bishop d6. Bishop d6 is the main response. Queen takes b7, bn d7. And it's not quite a poisoned pawn, but this queen is somewhat misplaced in this position. You know, black will be able to sort of develop while attacking the queen, which is always sort of a good sign. Let's look at the queen takes e6 line, evaluated as equal, and queen e7 here, and then probably like rook c8 or rook b8, something like that. Yeah, so let's look. So you were looking at the bishop b6 line prep. Let's look at that. This is a really interesting response. This queen is gonna get, you know, I was just playing the engine lines a second ago, but this queen is gonna get displaced on b7. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, let's look at the full novelty here. Interesting stuff, chess fan. Okay. I just want to see this. Yeah, I mean, this is a huge plus for black. So let's play through this this theory really slowly. C5, and then knight takes b4 is the engine line. So that the opening line he wanted. Okay, yeah, let's look chess fan. D takes c5 or knight takes b4 are the two opening book lines. Well, this much is theory. From here, but no, I mean bishop b6. Oh, is this all theory? Let's just look. Where does it diverge from theory here? Knight takes b4, or d takes c5, bishop takes c5. I think maybe queen d1 just sort of, or does theory just sort of end here? Yeah, no. So it is. Yeah, bishop b6 is established theory, but still an interesting play for black. So let's just look at the eval here. No. I mean, you know, theory is there's theory for a lot of things, and this is not the biggest opening database as well. So. This is cool though. It's a really cool idea. This bishop b6, bishop e4 move. This is what you're referring to. Is this queen win, which is cool. Cool looking thing. Bishop takes c5, queen b7, bishop b6, and then the novelty is on queen takes a8, bishop to e4, queen takes e4, or basically this wins the queen. The queen can't go anywhere, right? Yeah, so bishop to e4 wins the queen. But you know, this is not you know, this is pretty common theory. So this is potentially something that someone could play. You know, that this could be played in a game. You know, this is common enough that this could be played in a game. So a5 here is really the diverging move. The main move here is queen e7 defending the bishop. Queen b6 is also sometimes played. But a5, you know, a5 with this this queen trapping novelty in mind is an interesting play. Knight a2, c5, d takes c5, bishop takes c5, queen takes b7, bishop to b6, and then you know, either knight d2 is what the opening theory line is. I'm just looking for alternatives here, but this queen's mobility is really not good. So you know, basically the only move that even opens an escape square for the queen is knight d2. It's practically forced, actually. You know, queen takes a8 is well. First, yeah, this is super interesting. This is super interesting, chess fan. This queen takes a8 is actually evaluated as the best move. Knight d2. So the full queen sack is evaluated as the best option for white. The second best option is knight d2, and knight g5, also opening up the f3 square, is the third best option. But like a random move like bishop d2 here, or basically anything that doesn't open up an escape square. Yeah, no, 100% stop clock. I'll put that on for today at 6:05 p.m. Eastern, unless you prefer 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. But 6:05 p.m. Eastern is the next open slot, so that's when we would look at that stop clock. Yeah, no, thank you very much for sending it. 6:05. Would you prefer 10 a.m. tomorrow morning? It's up to you. Your choice, but 10 a.m. tomorrow morning or 6:05 p.m. Eastern, whichever is better. I'll make it 6:05 if you don't say anything. But okay, cool. In for 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And we still have slots we still have slots, 2 slots for tonight, if anyone wants to look at it, look at their game, or suggest some other lesson material. But yeah, thanks for sending it, Stop Clock. Super helpful, always super helpful to have people's suggestions and games and stuff. Please, please, thank you for sending, and everyone, please keep sending stuff. But thanks for helping with the stream. So that's in for 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, Stop Clock. Same time tomorrow as this stream. But yeah, this is a super interesting theory, Chess Fan. I really like the strategy here. Yeah, no problem. No, super happy. I'm doing these lessons, so anyone who wants games looked at or anything, Yeah, that's fine too, Chess Fan. If you send another game, we'll put it in for 10 a.m. tomorrow Eastern. It's really helpful to have everyone send stuff. Really, it makes the stream work. So yeah, if you send one in the chat right now, I'll put it in for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Yeah. So here, c5, pawn takes c5, bishop takes c5, queen takes. This is a very possible trap to fall into, and it's out of relatively common opening theory. This bishop on b5 followed with a5. Not at the moment. Basically, to be completely clear about it, I have open slots for tonight, and then plenty of open slots for tomorrow. So we don't really have an issue with people sending too much material. If anyone wants to bring new people in to send material, or if anyone wants to send multiple games, I have no problem with that. There's not much of a space constraint, and like I said, I'm doing these lessons for 3 hours a day regardless. I really enjoy doing this, and I learn a lot. So just no limit at this point. If people sent too much stuff, maybe I'd have to change it. But feel free to send as much as you want. I might not get to it for a day or two at this point, but yeah, please keep sending stuff, everyone. I appreciate it, and it really all just helps make the stream work. So yeah, no, good question, Jack, but nope, no limit. Within reason. So yeah, so this a5 is a diverging move from theory. Yeah, cool. I'll put King's Indian Defense in for a slot tomorrow morning, and we'll look at it then. Yeah, no, totally. Awesome. And I will put chess. Oh, hey, thank you very much, Vapor T, for the observe. Yeah, Chess Fan, I just gave Chess Fan a slot for 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, and then a theory slot for Jack Bellows tomorrow morning. But yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone for contributing to the stream. It makes my life a lot easier, honestly. It's much easier knowing, I can prepare a little bit ahead of time too, and look over the games ahead of time. Feel free to send whatever you want to send, or make whatever recommendations for content. No limit at this point, and it's super helpful for me. Anyways, so this is the novelty that Chessbra fan, or a chess fan finds. Basically, on Queen b3, a5. There are 4 moves here. a5 is the 3rd most popular. Knight a2, and then c5. D takes c5, bishop takes c5, and then queen takes b7 is basically a maneuver that is basically a novelty maneuver that puts white in a position where he can very easily have to sacrifice his queen. And if he doesn't sacrifice his queen, then black gets strong development here. Basically, all evals are positive for black, and actually the most objectively good one or the most objectively good transposition for white is on just directly sacrificing the queen here with so bishop b6, and then queen takes a8, bishop e4. This queen losing transposition is actually the best line for white. Everything else leaves them more than a pawn behind based on positional gains for black. Super interesting line. A really cool novelty, chess fan. Thanks for showing that. Yeah, so chess fan. On that topic, Jen was very was very nice and made a small emoji that says tactics on it. This would be a great place for us to use it. I'll add that to the stream soon, so it's like one of those custom emojis where it just says tactics and it's like a cool animation thing. It's really nice of Jen to make it, and we'll add that to the stream soon. But I guess my main point here is, chess fan, is that yeah, that kind of, that's actually a relatively easy problem to fix, chess fan. Just do more puzzles. Do like an hour of puzzles a day for a month, and you will be in a better place with that. And then if and then just keep doing it, and you'll get better and better. You'll get better and better at it. But that's the solution to that problem. Weak middle game, or not as good middle game, you can resolve pretty quickly with tactics and tactical study. So yeah, so that's cool. But this is an awesome opening novelty, chess fan. So thanks for showing it. We can go through the rest of the game, but it looks like black gets a solid lead here. Maybe bishop to c2 was, rook a b8, I think, was a more restricting move for the queen and less of an extension here. Like rook a b8, knight b5, queen b6. That seems to be a preferred line for black. But in any case, black basically doesn't lose the initiative for the rest of the game after this it was a non-take, by the way, of of the queen. The queen didn't get lost here. Knight b4, g3, bishop takes e3. And really the only, you've played this cool opening novelty, which I think is playable and strong. Yeah, thanks Tarash, appreciate it. Thanks for joining the stream. Yeah, but this so cool novelty. It gave black the situation where the actual best move was just to directly take. No, not yet, Tarash, but we will get to it. I think it might be the next one, but definitely on the stream. So yeah, so bishop e4 here, trapping the queen, and is actually white's best. This is actually white's best play in this novelty. And then, the knight on f3 needs to move to provide the escape square for the queen on f3. But after that, basically, black is up almost 2 pawns, and can just sort of walk this in in a pretty conservative way. Sure. Just making sure for your Tarash game, or for Tarash's game, I just want to check to make sure that I've got the right one here. It's a French. The one you sent was a French defense with an early exchange on d4, right? I just want to make sure that I correct the right one. Yeah. So yeah. No. We can still switch yours out if you'd like. Actually, I'll wait just to confirm I'm switching out the right one, but I think I should be able to. Yeah. So here, bishop c2 is rook a b8 is considered to be a slightly better move. Bishop to c2 is kind of a loose tactical expansion. It's good that black has a lot of pieces on white's queen side, but rook a b8 I think is a more kind of calm way to threaten the queen. But black is still winning and has an initiative after bishop to c2. An exchange. Yeah, sure. Let's look at it. Bishop e2, bishop to c2, queen to d8, or queen to e1. Knights. Yeah, that looks like a good line too, chess fan. Yep. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. In terms of eval, they're about the same. So basically this is the split here, right? Rook fd8, actually does have a slightly better eval than bishop to c2. I would probably play bishop to c2 here, not to steer you away from what you did. What you did was the best. So how could I, but consolidating a material edge here might be a safer way to play it. At least for me, because for me it would be kind of tricky to guarantee that I could. I mean, either way is good. But what you played was objectively the best move. But bishop to c2, if you find it, I think is probably the move to play. Just because it's good to have a tangible material lead. At least for me, I'm not good enough at evaluating positions. I'm not a computer, so for me, I would probably play bishop to c2 and just say, okay, well now I'm up in exchange, and I know that I'm up in exchange. Rook fd8 is objectively the best move, but it's sort of tricky to. I would not feel comfortable, if I could see both of the moves and I saw bishop to c2 or rook f to d8. I guess I would lean towards, or I would say if I saw both options, I would play bishop to c2 because I wouldn't be confident enough to say, okay, rook fd8 is actually objectively better than bishop to c2. I would just go with the one that I know wins material and not be too fixated on, I know it's good and I know it wins material, so I would lean towards bishop to c2 here. Then you're playing up material for the rest of the game, as opposed to playing with a material advantage. That sort of goes against that one classic thing, which is that or a lasting positional advantage is worth more than material. I can't remember who said that, but for me, it's often difficult enough to evaluate whether or not I actually have a positional, or whether or not I have a good enough positional advantage to forego winning material. But anyways, it's a good find, that bishop to c2 line. And then, but the opening theory was awesome. That's a really cool and nice of you to share your the novelty that you found. I like it a lot. I think after knight to a2, you could easily steer someone in, or you could easily steer someone into this particular novelty, which gives black an advantage. Really nice game. Cool theory, and thanks for sharing that. Very interesting. I don't have that much to offer you in terms of improvement. You've played a solid novelty, maybe slightly better tactical play here. But I think we're on the same page. Tactical execution is sort of best determined by the computer. But yeah, really cool game. Thank you for being willing to share that with us, chess fan. Cool and interesting. Hey, good morning, Hyperion. How are you? Let's look. I'll replace the one that's in Tarash's spot. Okay. Were you playing the Nightorf, or yeah, no, thanks for sending a chess fan, and you're in for a slot for tomorrow, for sure. Oops. Cool. Awesome. So this is a Sicilian Nightorf. Interesting. With this early a6, makes e5, a threat that white can play pretty comfortably. A6, a4, e5. And now, as opposed to some of the, Sicilian lines in which black plays e5, this knight to b5 becomes an option that's pretty. Basically, knight to b5 is probably the most natural square against the d6 e5 formation. So this Najdorf with the early a6 prevents the knight from developing to b5 and threatening the d6 pawn, or at least applying pressure to the d6 pawn, as happens in a lot of Sicilian lines. But yeah, so let's look. So d4, cx d4, knight takes, knight f6, knight c3, a6. And then you're at one of those interesting places in theory where you have a ton of playable options. Bishop to g5, bishop to e3, bishop to e2. There's total of, I think, 9 options here with more than 2,000 games having been played. Hey, Raname, thanks for joining the stream. But yeah, 9 total popular options here. A4 is an interesting one. Actually, A4 is probably the way that I would play this. I think, basically this, this counter to A6, preventing B5 is it's a pretty intuitive way to play against A6. Black is trying to expand on the queen side, or implying that he's trying to expand on the queen side. So you might as well play A4 to counter it. And with A4, B5 can't comfortably be played by black because B5, pawn takes B5, and the A6 pawn is pinned. So A4 makes sense. E5, knight B3, bishop B7. This is very well established Sicilian Najdorf theory. Okay, and then here black plays a novelty, right? This is a divergence from theory, and an interesting one. I don't think it's a. I guess I would say I don't think this is a particularly good move for black, actually. Rook b8 is an interesting move in the Sicilian. On this theory before, we've actually gone through rook b8 as an idea. We looked at rook b8 against a king that's castled kingside, and the basically the advantages of rook b8 versus rook c8, and the pressure that it puts on b2 after the king has castled queenside. Here it doesn't have that advantage. I guess that there's sort of an idea of like bishop takes b3, and then like b6, and then maybe potentially some rook threats on a doubled b pawn. That still sort of exists, but it requires, it almost requires losing the a6 pawn in order to do that. So here, f3, b6, knight takes, rook takes, queen c7, bishop takes. And this transposes in such a way that this b file is getting attacked by that rook, and black is threatening to win material with like bishop takes b3. So this didn't really pan out for black. I'm thinking probably rook c8, the traditional Sicilian open rank, is probably the best way for black to play this. So rook c8, I think, is objectively the best here. And if we look at it, the opening book says rook c8 or queen c7. Plays being made for this open c file for black, which is one of the key aspects of the Sicilian, right? Is that black gets an open c file to attack on. So it does make sense that black would want to utilize it here. So as opposed to rook b8, let's look. Cool. Yeah, let's check it out. But rook b8, by the way, is just I think an inferior move. The Sicilianists played with the open c file for attack being a big characteristic of black's position. So taking b taking the b file with the rook as opposed to the c file is probably not the correct idea. Anyways, this looks okay. Looks like black hangs the a6 pawn here. The engine seems to prefer the immediate Bishop takes a6 over a takes b6. Um, Bishop takes a6 is kind of interesting. Bishop takes b3, cx b3, takes a5. And I guess, you know, basically the positive eval for white is determined on this pawn being likely to be lost. And the queen side's going to get neutralized, which is generally something that favors black, I think, in the Sicilian. But you know, here I don't think that the b file is going to get neutralized. I think basically, you know, bishop to c4 can be played, and I don't think that there's an easy way for black to really win all of white's pawns. Yeah, I think that that white can hold the b3 pawn, even though it's doubled. Anyways, so bishop takes a6 is evaluated as white's best move. You know, winning that material and then providing kind of you know, a delayed, you know, basically a delayed take of you know, the b6, which becomes the a5 pawn also. Anyways, rook to b8, bishop to c4, queen to b7, knight, queen. And it's an opposite colored bishop endgame with better chances for white. I'm just looking at this. So white is up a pawn, right? But not really, because it's a doubled and isolated pawn on the b file. You know, it's not a pawn that has the full standard value. White's bishop is good. Black's bishop is not really as good. This is not a good diagonal, and it's going to take another, you know, couple moves to win. But it is yeah, that's pretty impressive, Tarash. Let's think about this for a second. You've brought up a really interesting position here. So, okay, I'm thinking what you probably want to do is play the rook to the a file, and play it to a7, and then maybe play it to like d7. But yeah, his light squares are weak, right? Maybe you open the position as well. But interesting. I'm sort of also wondering if you might have some type of maneuver, like, you know, where you're sort of carrying the b. I think I have a guess of what you're going to do here. I think what you can do here is basically guide the b pawn forward with like rook a4, then b4, then bishop c6, then b5, and kind of like maneuver the rook and bishop so that the pawn is never defended. I think you might get stuck a little bit with the b6 move and the bishop defending it, but by that point you've basically got really good control of the king side over here. Yeah, no. So that's what I'm curious about. Interesting. Okay, so this is actually all right. That's different than what I was thinking. Wow, this is a great, yeah. Okay, that was much better than what I came up with in my 30 seconds. But that is interesting. This yeah, this is a good way to exploit it, because the pieces are basically tied to the non-advance of the b pawn. Good endgame, yeah, good endgame idea, and I think pretty instructive. Like, basically the pieces here are keeping this this b pawn from advancing, which, you know, is probably required. So white then, with those pieces that are sort of stuck, advances, you know, on the king side, and you know, basically exploits the anchoring of the pieces for black on the queen side. Pretty interesting. And I'm not sure how much of this was forced for black. You know, I gotta think that there's some improvements here. Like, yeah, no, it's a really good idea. So h4, rook king e7. Good. I think h5 was a good idea here. It sort of fractures the pawns and allows, basically here there's no entry for white on the king side. Right. The only, yeah. So you're attacking the white squares here with your h5 move. Yep. Yeah, yeah, right, and it's not a hole that can be fixed either because the bishop for black is on the wrong color. Interesting. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. So basically, what Tarash is saying here is that, or at least I think what Tarash is saying here, and I think it's a great idea, is, this bishop is on dark squares. So given that the bishop is on dark squares, you want to make your advancements with the king on white squares. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So seeing that the bishop is on a dark square here, and the pawns are somewhat, the pawns basically are vulnerable to a single pawn advance and a breaking of the pawn structure here. You probably should just play h5 and then king f5 and get in through the white squares. It makes a lot of sense in terms of endgame theory, actually. Um, yeah, I wouldn't have found that or didn't find that. So yeah, that's a really strongly played endgame. Um, h4, and then king e7, and then h6. Yeah, no, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so, interesting. So I guess that provides like kind of a thematic concept on opposite colored bishop endgames, which is basically, if you need to generate spaces for your king to advance, do it on the squares that, it's probably intuitive actually, but do it on the squares that your opponent's bishop is not. Because he can never knock you off of the squares that his bishop isn't the right color for. Uh, it's like the broader theory to that. Um, Interesting. Yeah, interesting idea. And correct. Um, uh, yeah, no, totally. No, I think this is a great opportunity to slow this down and just look at the end game here. Um, that's a really good instructive concept. Um, yeah, and then this is a good demonstration of the execution. Um, also, it sort of shows a three. Yeah, no, black never had any counterplay. It shows how black can or white can fracture a three pawn set with a two pawn set here too. This is just sort of a good advancement. Um, Yeah, but not really. I mean, it's actually a really good demonstration of that endgame concept. H5 here, basically forces all of Black's pawns to dark squares, uh, and then wins by advancing on the white squares. H5. Okay, so yeah, but I mean, you still get the key. I agree with what you're saying, Tarash. I think that's right. Um, yeah, no, for sure. But you still get the break on e6, right? I mean, either way, if the king is on g7, you play h5, pawn takes h5, and yeah, or g5, and you get some, either one of those, either one of those advancements to the sixth rank feels like a win to me for white. Really interesting idea. Um, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So yeah, but that provides okay. So anyways, really cool idea, Tarash. I'm glad you've already done some analysis on it, and like, I think for anyone watching, it's a good demonstration of a pretty good advanced end game concept. Which is, if you need to create a king advancement in a opposite colored bishop endgame, definitely plan to do it on the side of on the color that your opponent's bishop is not. Uh, I mean, that might apply to any endgame, I guess, and playing a king and bishop endgame. But the plan to get to the 6th rank on the white squares was great, and I think really impressive that the Tarash was able to find that so early in this end game. But great demonstrative stuff. Yeah, yeah, no, I think this is really instructive. For me, I've never, I guess I probably have thought that through during the game, but I've never been able to think of that through as like an opening principle. So for anyone else watching, I think Tarash has given an awesome summary of this, and yeah, it gives a good demonstration of an opposite colored bishop endgame plan. Uh, Yeah, that too. That line was restrictive. But yeah, looks like a win for White and pretty busting. So yeah, awesome. Really cool idea. Really cool idea, Tarash, and thank you for sharing that. Um, yeah, no, thanks for sharing that game. That was awesome and super instructive. And if anyone wants to go back and read all the chat there that Tarash has volunteered, some really good advanced concepts, endgame concepts there. Also, if anyone wants to recommend or if anyone wants to see more endgame play, they can recommend it for a slot, and we'll check it out. Yeah, totally. Yeah, please do. I might look it over myself. Really interesting stuff, Tarash, as always. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, cool. Next game. This is Road to 2201's game. I wanted to see this one. I did look this over for a second before the stream, but want to get another good look at it. Cool. So Road to 2200 sent this game. It's really interesting Sicilian Alpin game. It basically ends up being a win for White, but there's a lot of interesting play here, and a good demonstration of a move that I like actually, and that I will occasionally play, which is knight to a3 in the Sicilian Alpin. Yeah, no, please do. Please invite as many people as you want, and please ask them to like submit material for submit material for the stream too. It's super helpful. It's great to have people here and contributing material to the stream. I'm doing this. I love doing this. This is really fun for me. A lot more fun than some of the other work that I do and have done in my life. So this is yeah. I'm really happy doing this. Please invite everybody. I really like it. So thanks for asking, Hyperion. Please bring them along and encourage them to submit material, for analysis if that's what they're interested in. But yeah, so here, Road to 2201. This basically is a good, it's a good move. I mean, it's a very playable, often book move in the Sicilian. It's actually the most common here when the queen plays to d5. Let's just slow this down and go back to the theory. This is Sicilian with an early d5, queen takes d5. Yeah, that too. But don't. I'm here to teach chess. Jen is being encouraging by talking about some of the other work that I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, no, don't. Thank you, Jen, for that. E6, knight f3, knight f6, knight a3, yeah, knight a3, bishop e7, bishop c4, queen e4. And overall here, this is basically divergent from theory. Here we're still at like hundreds and hundreds of games. Okay. True. That is true, Jen. Anyways, yeah, really happy to have anyone here who's interested in looking at their games and doing some free lessons and analysis and stuff. But yeah, so knight a3, bishop e7, And then the most common here is knight b5, threatening this fork on c7. It's a little tricky because there's some maneuvering. Thanks, Jen. But bishop c4, queen e4, bishop e3, castles, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight c6. Jen plays chess. Maybe we can do a stream where Jen plays chess on my account or something. Or I don't know if that's allowed, but we can do a Jen playing chess stream at some point. But yeah, this overall ends up being a pretty good position for white. An early basically early kingside basically kingside attack for white, better center control for white. And no real counterplay for black on the queen side, which is the way that the Sicilian normally goes. I just want to see. I don't really think there's any missteps here. Bishop e7 is sort of an uncommon, maybe not the most efficient development. The most popular moves here are either queen d8 or knight c6, but I think anything that develops here is probably fine. I'm a little surprised bishop e7 is more popular than bishop to d7. I'd figure with bishop to d7 here, bishop to d7 honestly isn't even on the list of moves, but I guess I would say bishop d7 makes sort of intuitive sense because you can play bishop takes b5 if white tries to really advance that knight. Maybe it's not worth it for that exchange there, but castles, pawn takes. This position looks better for white in my opinion. I'm surprised to see that the engine is not favoring white by more here. I don't know. I guess rook d8 or something, but knight c6. Okay. Now the white basically gets to chase around the queen, but this overall, I think is going to be better for white. Rook d8, queen e2, a6, and then white has a tactical play here. This does look like it works, right? Knight takes e6, pawn takes e6, bishop takes e6, and then if the king moves, then bishop takes c8, and then there's a discovered check on e7. Alternatively, if the bishop trades, then queen e6, queen takes e7. But overall, yeah, I think this is pretty good for white. Yeah, I mean, basically white's up 2 pawns for not much compensation, and can just trade into a king and pawn endgame and win. Again, a really strong game by white. Good theory. Yeah, thanks Jen. Queen takes d5, knight f3, and overall here, I think black's in white's in pretty good shape. Black's queen is a little bit misplaced. E6 becomes an aggressive. Me specifically, I didn't do much. I basically looked at lines where knight a3 is a playable move. I think basically knight a3 can be a really cool surprise attack. I've even seen knight a. I think my study of the Sicilian Alapin came from wanting to play this and making this a playable game in 30s or game in 45s. Like fast time control, something like this can really mess up your opponent. And then you end up transposing it with c3, d4. But you can actually play 2 knight a3 and not have that bad a position if you transpose it into the Sicilian Alapin. Black's probably supposed to play d5. Although the issue with d5 is pawn takes d5, queen takes d5, and then not immediately, but like knight f3, knight c6, bishop to c4, something like that, and you get a lot of pressure on black pretty quickly. C takes d5, queen takes d5, and this already immediately, this is an intuitive response for black. but white already gets a favorable eval here actually. This position is +6/5, and based off of threats like bishop c4, knight b5. But anyways, it's a really good. It's actually a really good trick, which I think it basically transposed into learning good pieces of the Sicilian opening. But knight a3, d5, pawn takes actually is a pretty good way of white to maintain the edge. The best move here is not d5. It's like straightforward developing moves like knight c6 or e6, much slower things. But the intuitive d5 is not a good move for black. So anyways, you asked me specifically how did I learn the c3 Sicilian. It was it was actually trying to make knight a2 work. Tarash has volunteered his game with some good endgame principles. I'll take a look at it myself. So feel free. That's probably a great opportunity to learn some good endgame theory there. But yeah, anyways, this d5 queen takes d5 is not necessarily so good. I can play through it in a minute. But where would I actually point to? I think white's played a great game here. Where would I point to or improvements for white? After here, I think white has a straightforward win. So rook, knight takes. I'm just looking because it looks like a really pretty accurate game. You sort of go from opening theory to you basically go from opening theory to finding a winning tactic on bishop e6. But I guess we can try to find something. Let's look. I'm sort of struggling because I think white played a good game, like a pretty accurate game here. I may end up I'm looking at sort of what the computer says, but yeah, this is fine. These are taste related things, I think. Basically, I think this game is going to say there's no errors here. Yeah. Look, this is a 9. Yeah, no, it is. It's a winning eval. 97.7 accuracy. It's a good demonstration of how to play that c3 Sicilian, though. But in terms of actual instructional, I can't provide you much guidance as someone giving lessons here. I think you've played an excellent game, so it's a good. I can congratulate you, but I can't actually add that much. Very strong. Yep, that's a win. Yeah. No. I think honestly, I'm sort of, you're definitely on the road to 2200 as your screen name says. But anyways, I can talk a little bit about my, how I learned some Sicilian Alapin theory and demonstrate a little bit how knight a3 beats the intuitive d5. Yeah, and that's totally cool too. Honestly, no. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. An excellent game is a good, a demonstration of good play. So, if that's the most help that I can provide, that's a win. That's a win too. So queen takes d5 is not a line though against, or not a good line against this 2 knight a3. There is one IM that there's there's a good knight a3 move that can be basically a win for white. There was an IM that went so if anyone's ever interested in looking at the surprise weapon 2 knight a3 against the Sicilian, you can transpose. It has value in that you can transpose it into the Sicilian Alapin, and there's actually some great instructional games played by some IM and some norm tournament that will provide some good theory. But it actually is playable as a surprise weapon. At the end of the day, it leads to basically it's a quality on move 2, so it's not really a playable line for white. but it can be a good surprise weapon, and has been played by high-level people as a surprise weapon. In single tournaments where other players didn't have the time to prepare and find lines that win against it. But yeah, anyways, a great Sicilian Alpin game. Yeah, Bishop C4, and I think yeah, cool tactical responses on E6 as well. I think no, I think that one's coming up. Maybe is that the one that's sent by Emmett? I'm not sure about that one, to be completely honest. I think maybe we got to that one last night, Topo, but I'm just wanting to make sure that we have it here. But anyways, excellent Sicilian Alpin. Thank you very much for sending that road to 2200. Strong game, and yeah, I appreciate you sending it. I'm not seeing Sorley's game, I don't think, on my list. Would you be all right with checking either last night or wait, let me just check, because you've asked a specific question, so I can give a pretty good response to that one. It's not that one. It's tonight at 6:05. Topo. We'll get to that tonight at 6:05. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I've got it, Topo. It's this one here, and unfortunately we can't get to it till tonight's stream. I hope that's all right. Tonight at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. I need to label these better in my book, but I've got it, and we will look at it. During tonight's stream at 6:05. Thanks very much for sending it. Thanks for Swordley's game, and yeah, super happy to look at it. This'll be cool to look at. But yeah, two more for the stream this morning. One from Justin and one from Emmett. Yeah, thanks Topo. Thanks for sending it, and I'm thinking I think longer term, I'm probably gonna build a website that deals with game submission. I think that's probably a cleaner way to just do this. I need a better labeling system. And a better Excel spreadsheet, to be completely honest. But yeah, so that game's tonight, and I'm glad I was able to find it so quickly. Cool. So Justin sent this one. It's him versus looks like it's him versus a GM. If it's a win versus a GM, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to help. Yes, we did, but I think we can do better than that. It was awesome, and Jen set that up, and it was like a really nice of Jen to set it up. So I want to take a look at it. But I think longer term, it's not. It's something that I think the Discord for now. Yeah, I think for now, submitting games on the Discord, either Chess Study or either Chess Study Discord or my personal Discord are probably the two best routes for submitting games. But anyways, yeah, that's that will also work too for the time being. This is interesting. Black plays a really early Queen F6. That's cool. A deviation from theory. Bishop D3, C3, D5 looks good. And yeah. I mean, it's an interesting game. Surprised that this was a GM game, but I'm gonna trust the labeling and go with it. We're still actually in opening theory. So let's see. So I'm actually really surprised by this, though. Let's look at this. So this is French with D4, E4, E6. Bishop takes F6 is actually the main line here. H6, bishop takes F6 has 2,700 games. Very surprising. Knight F3, D6, Bn D2. Main line is Knight C3, but they're both similar. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't think White's looking super great here. I mean, I guess the queen is somewhat awkwardly placed. You know, the queen doesn't have much of an opportunity to threaten on d4. You know, this queen would become more valuable in a situation where white had castled kingside. But yeah. Yeah. No, I think I'm surprised that the eval is as generous as it is to white here. D5, knight e7. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I do think that that opening line is weird. Uh, I mean, you know, if it's weird because I guess yeah, there's some very complicated things going on here because it's basically a French line without d5. It would be as if you know, white or black played knight f6 against the French. That's you know, that's strange. So e4, e6, d4, knight f6. I mean, that's sort of a weird thing to do, but seems to be pretty good. Uh, Interesting. Yeah, I mean, but basically, it is a an acceptable line. This h6 now, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, knight f3, d6. Yeah, knight c3 is probably a more straightforward development. Bishop bn d2 though allows for c4. Bishop d3, knight c6. Yeah, I'm you know, this is not a an opening that I'm super familiar with. E5, d5, knight e7. Or why didn't you play knight takes e4? Here? On the interesting. On I don't think there's too much of an opportunity to play e4. Anyways, this you know, this basically plays out into sort of an equal looking game. Let's look at this let's look at the situation. Queen b3, b6, and the middle game here is interesting. I assume we're out of opening theory. So what's going on in this position? White has castled kingside. You know, opportunities. There's opportunities with a4, a5, c4, maybe knight c4, knight e3. I'm trying to come up with like a real plan here. Yeah, so like g4 is it, you know, f3, g4. But what are the characteristics of this position? Okay, so white has center control. These pawns are better than black's pawns. The center is constricted. It's a closed game. This you know, basically this structure is going to attack white at some point. So I guess probably the best plans here are black attacking on the king side, probably with knight g6, knight f4, and maybe, I mean, it's a little tricky because you know, ideally, you know, you'd want to castle queen side, and then move the rook to g8 to strengthen this attack. I mean, I'm seeing a pretty aggressive attack from black on the king side here. That's how I think I would play this game. Knight g6, knight f4, king e7, rook g8, and then pawn storm with like h5, g4, h4. That's probably what I would do. And then I would just honestly like let white get the queen side. Attack on the king side. Let white you know, let white take on the queen side, and then attack on the king side. That's what I would do as black. So that's the idea that I would form here. As white, I would probably play I'd probably play like f3 to prevent too many attacks coming in. But I think the defining characteristic of this position is black's ability to attack on the king side. That's sort of what I'm seeing the most easily here. Maybe a5. I mean, I guess that you wouldn't want to hang the a6 pawn for no reason. But I'm not sure that's what happens in this game. Okay, yeah, all right. So it is what happens in this game. From here, I really was seeing a kingside attack as being the best play for black. Okay, you're thinking f5 or f4. Bishop g7, queen a4, bishop d7, queen b3. That is true. That is true. Especially the dark squared bishop. I mean, the dark squared bishop can't really contribute to any attack on the king side. It's almost a liability. I mean, it basically the dark squared bishop here basically holds the black from advancing. Yeah, that's an idea. Yeah, if you can get enough support to make f5 playable, that might make the attack easier. I don't know. What black tries here is sort of interesting. I mean, it's basically an attempt to. I'm also wondering maybe if is b5 playable here. No, I guess b6 is better. b6 is better. b5 leads to c4. Yeah. But I like that idea again, Tarash. That makes sense. Rook to g8. But yeah, the defining piece of this position, I think, is attacking on the king side. And white and black does that. How does how does this advance here? H3, queen h4. Overall, I think basically, black makes some improvements here. That f4 pawn falls basically. The knights get posted to f5, and there's not really an opportunity to defend the e4 into f5 pawn. Interesting. I'm just looking for any particular moves which really swing the needle towards black. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing that happens, right? Is black's attack is something that requires response, so it sort of halts white's counterplay. Queen d1, queen g6, a4. Yeah, this is this is a strong game. I mean, it's basically wait, actually there looks like there's some slip here, right? Maybe not. I'm just thinking if there's the tactical imprecisions here. But the engine finds castling to be slow. Well, it means you're losing, basically, at the end of the day. You're losing if you have to stop your plan halfway. That basically invalidates the time that you've spent on your halfway stopped plan to respond to the other side's plan. I mean, that's actually one of the things, you see, at least for me, I see it on the side of the, I see it on the Sicilian, where, basically you sort of know that you've created a good position in the Sicilian if you can deflect, if you can stop black's play on the queen side by requiring responses on the king side. That's one of the Sicilian themes that I think of. Same thing goes. If black can direct play to the queen side and stop any advancements of white's king side attack, that also means that black is generally winning. Um, uh, yeah, let's see. Well, I mean, I would say white's sort of forced to change plans, or white appears to start changing plans as early as queen d1. So like here, white has like a plus +0.5 eval. Rook c1, it looks like, the first move where the tide is sort of shifted, I think, is queen d1. And that does shift the eval in black's favor. Maybe it was a premature way to do this. I guess the engine is already recommending shift plans here with g3. The engine does see the kingside attack coming. Queen g6, a4, b4. Yeah, no, this looks pretty strong. I mean, I guess there's some inefficiencies here, but I don't know. I'm sort of not. A lot of the ratings in the games that people submit sort of surprise me, so I'm not going to get too stuck on it. Just looking at how well executed this kingside attack was. This actually sort of didn't work, right? So black's at minus 0.4 here. Rook a1, h5. So h4 is not considered to be the most efficient move here. What's black's better routes? Maybe like f5, like you were saying. But this pawn break doesn't seem to quite do it. Yeah, f5, bishop takes f5, knight takes f5, something like that. Yeah. h4, knight e3, bishop h6, knight 1 g2. Yeah, h5 I guess didn't really pan out that well for black, right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I would say I'm not particularly... it's an interesting game, but I'm not, like, super impressed. There's still more volatility here than I'd be expecting from a grandmaster, to be honest. I don't know. It's interesting, but, like... I don't know. This h4 move kind of, doesn't work as a tactic. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I think people are sort of having some fun with the games that they're submitting here, but that's fine with me. It's just a game. Anyways, I'm not too worried about it. Let's look. Where the actual, I do like the black kingside plan, but yeah, h4 was not the most efficient response. Yeah, that probably is the best way to advance this attack. Anyways, interesting game. I don't know. Looks like black formed a pretty strong attack. h4 is probably slightly inefficient. In terms of improvements for white, I don't know. The opening was kind of questionable. That bishop takes f6, I'm not a fan of, but whatever. Yeah, black basically exerts pressure on white. But the eval, I think after bishop takes f6, or let's see the move that swung the eval in the opening. Knight c4 is getting recommended here. I don't know. Yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna go on to the next game. That was an interesting game. It showed a basically early plan formation. Black didn't Black probably didn't maximize with castles. That wasn't the move that the engine particularly liked. I don't think it moved the attack forward. I think maybe the correct play was king e7 there. Rook f8 and then f5. But overall, I think that's I think that's an interesting game. So Emmett sent this one in. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Caro Khan with f4. All right. I have not seen this. I've not seen much of this. Yeah, no. Thank you very much for sending that one, Justin. Always interesting to see, and yeah, some new ideas, and yeah, appreciate it. So c6, f4 here, well down the list of responses to the Caro Khan. d4 being the main line. No, we're going. Regardless. So no, not at all, Tarash. Thanks. Appreciate volunteer. So f4, d5, knight c3, d takes e4, knight takes e4, knight f6, knight f2. Surprised that's opening theory, but it appears to be. Here, how does white advance? Bishop to f5, d4, g6, knight f3. Yeah, this is pretty interesting. Oh, you played black here. Right. Yeah, so let's take it from your perspective. I don't know how to play this opening, to be completely honest. Yeah, I know f4 is an unusual play. d4 is an intuitive response. Go on with the standard Caro Khan. Knight c3, d takes e4, knight takes e4, knight f6, knight f2. Yeah, that is a pretty wild opening. Let's see. d5, knight f3, pawn takes f3, or pawn takes e4. I mean, knight f3 in some sense is even more surprising to me. Knight c3 looks so much better than knight f3, but I guess he's trying to do like I guess it's like Budapest type thing where he's like, gonna extend his knight to g5 and then back to e4. Yeah. So knight f3 here. Knight to c3, I guess. Yeah, I would play knight to c3 here, but I guess white probably has his defined theory in mind, right? If he's comfortable playing e4, c6, f4, he probably knows particular. No, I think it's great. I mean, it's kind of good to see these things because I've long since forgotten the responses to all of these types of games. So actually getting to go back and look at them is actually super interesting for me because at my level, you're seeing Queen's Pawn games and like Sicilian every single time. So it's sort of awesome to go back to go back to basics. Like what happens in your Caro Khan if someone plays f4? I mean, most masters have long since forgotten. I'm certainly one of them. So yeah, f4. I don't know, but it's cool. I get to go back and learn it. So knight f3. appearing to hang the e4 pawn is a really cool way to play this. Knight g5, knight f6, bishop c4, e6. Yep, this looks cool. Here in this position, I mean, it's really interesting. I have to think most of these are better for black, though. F4, you know, basically, yeah, pawn takes f4. It's wild. Now he goes. Now it's like a museo. Really cool. But now, you know, I think from this point, you know, this game is basically going to get determined based on tactical considerations. You know, black basically is winning from about move whatever 5 to the end, until the very end. But yeah, so overall here, I'm gonna limit the analysis to like probably the point where it gets to like minus 3. But this gives us a really cool opportunity to get to explore this opening. Yeah, so like after bishop c4, when black, when white chooses to play a museo, I think that's an error, and one that one with black with sufficient tactical study should be able to refute pretty successfully. But I am actually really interested in this because this is an unknown opening theory for me. So knight c3 is the main line, e5 is the second line. And e5 is sort of interesting. This looks a little bit overextended, but black plays bishop f5 and sort of turns this. Black's going to turn this into a real Caro-Kann now. So e5 moves us well in the more towards normal Caro-Kann direction. D takes e4, and then so other options here: knight c3, d takes e4, knight takes e4. Now you have kind of a weird Caro-Kann type thing. I'm sure better for black. Knight f6, knight f2. Yeah, no, right. It looks like a Budapest. With knight f3 to me looks like a Budapest also. But this actually is relatively close to equality. So bishop f5 here. D4, e6, g4, bishop g6, and overall here, I don't know. It's like, this is way out of any. This really doesn't look like positions that I recognize super well. But apparently better for white. Knight f3, bn d7, queen e2. What's this opening even called? This is what happens when Caro-Kann just or when the opening book just sort of throws up its hand. This is funny. Caro-Kann defense. Yep. Yes, it is. Pawn takes e4. Well, the computer does say better for white. I'm not sure this is that much. I'm not sure I would necessarily say it's not better for white. D5 here, knight c3, d takes e4, knight takes e4, knight f6, knight f2. I mean, yeah, this is awkward. And then the next move, right? The next move is g6, knight f3. I guess this is better for black. Well, the actual game, yeah, the game was. So knight f6. Here on the non-sidelines, yes, it's like a Caro-Kann museo. But this is clearly better for black. Well, yeah, I sort of am impressed by it. Like, at some point, the games are very creative. They've been, when you see openings like this, that they've been designed by hand, right? Yeah, I mean, basically that no one has provided, no one has provided guidance to a player under 1,000 who's playing like f4 against the Caro-Kann. You know that they've just generated that idea. So I do feel like people can lose a lot by getting entrenched in the way that things have been. So looking at these new games is actually super interesting. Yeah, no one else has done it, so that could provide some. If no one else has done it, that when you do something that no one has done before, it generally tends to lead to either failure, which you can walk away from, or outsized returns, which are great. So I definitely am in favor of trying new things here. So here, this is knight f3, pawn takes e4, and then knight g5, knight f6, bishop c4, e6. Yeah, this is too good for black, but yeah, there you go. Yes. Nah, I don't know. I mean, there's no failure you can't walk away from at the end of the day. If you're not too prideful, you can generally tend to cut losses on failures. So trying new things is always a good idea in my mind. Pawn takes d5, bishop c4, knight f3, d takes e4, bishop c4, pawn takes f3, and yeah, this is the King's Gambit Caro-Kann. I'm actually just really stuck on this. I want to learn this theory now. It's very interesting. I have to think knight f3 is not playable here, but d3 or knight f3 might be. E5 basically turns it back into a normal Caro-Kann with f4 having been played. What else does black do here? Like knight f3, knight c6, c3. It's basically a Caro-Kann game. Maybe one that's better for black. Because white has, if white plays e5, it basically breaks the tension in the center here. I mean, it's not, right? Like, it's only going to leave you a pawn behind, so you could play it and see what happens. Knight f3, yeah. I'm interested in knight c3. This is just interesting. Probably not that much better. Like, this is not that much better for black. I would not be scared off of playing this surprise opening as white. Yeah, something like that. Knight f2, bishop f5, d4, g6. Knight f3. It's basically equality. It's a surprise weapon, right? It's an idea. This doesn't look ridiculously terrible for white. All right, I'm gonna play this today in a game. I'm gonna play if I play e4 against the c6, I'm gonna play f4 and see what happens. But I'm gonna follow it up with knight c3, and we'll get to know this line a little bit better. It has no name. It's just the Caro-Kann, which it is. But yeah, no. I think it's interesting. E4. Well, I don't know next stream, but I'm gonna try to get some games in with it and see where that goes. But ultimately, thank you very much for sending that game, Emmett. Yeah, very curious about this. Gonna look into what happens if I try it 5 times as white. I don't think the Museo in the Caro-Kann is playable, but I think that yeah, I think that this might be. We're back in an opening line here. Look. It says, you know, white basically has opened the Caro-Kann here. Interesting. I don't know. Let's all try this. But you've introduced a very interesting new idea to us, Emmett. F4 against Caro-Kann is something that I haven't seen before, and ultimately you get a great game where your opponent hangs some pieces. Always happy to take a look at games like this. I actually legit like. I'm not, you know, I'm being you know, I'm joking about it, but it is actually really interesting to see ideas that are totally novel. Like, you know, there's just not that much. Yeah, thanks, Jack. No, thanks, Jack, for sure. This is it's good to see novel openings. You know, I haven't looked at this before, but it's an interesting idea, and now I'm encouraged to go and play it from the white side. Caro-Kann with F4. Yeah, so thank you very much for sending it. Very interesting. Legitimately, I'll take a look at it. It's probably not playable, but it might be playable as a surprise attack at some point to myself or someone else watching. So yeah, thanks for sending it. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, that's why I would say, you know, under 2,000, your biggest way of improving is just tactical study. You got to kind of shore up your game, because realistically, you know, you can win a game. The way that you beat F4 in the Caro-Kann is not by memorizing a solution to it. It's by you know, understanding thematic principles and understanding tactical principles. You know, that's how one beats F4 in the Caro-Kann. If you don't, you know, if you're trying to memorize everything, there's probably too many crazy sidelines that can be played. But on the other hand, if you are, you know, playing in a place where, you know, the games are more frequently coming down to opening study, something like that could provide the advantage if you're willing to put in the opening study. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a completely impossible thing to do, Tarash, or a crazy thing to do. So, you know, I guarantee if you talk to grandmasters about F4 in the Caro-Kann, the number that would know what you're supposed to do there beyond basic principles is going to be pretty low. So I don't know. It's interesting. I bet I can beat. I'll try to beat a master with it today, and we'll see. Stalemate ending. I guess I would just say yeah, try to well, I mean, you have mate and 1 on the move before, but yeah, rook b8 is yeah. So I think rook b8 there probably is a tactical improvement. But I would, yeah, you know, my main thing for you, Emmett, is because you are facing these crazy openings. Your next step in terms of improving is tactics. So this is why I need my tactics emoji, and this is why I think that's the best course of action. You just do puzzle battle, puzzle rush for an hour a day, or chess tempo for an hour a day for a month. You will be in much better position. And games that are this volatile, you will win consistently. You'll see rook b8 here, and you'll be able to win. So that's why I would say tactical study here is the best idea for you. Anyways. Yeah, no, thank you very much for sending that, Jack. Very interesting, good to look at. No, good, legitimately good to look at and very instructive. And thank you for sending it. If you have any other, you know, very offbeat opening ideas, I think I'd like to see them. But yeah, I'm gonna push you towards. I'm gonna say, you know, I'm gonna recommend tactical study for you, and with tactical study, you'll be in good shape. Thanks a lot for sending that, Jack. Thanks everyone for sending that and contributing to the stream. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for that, and I'm gonna take a look. Oh, we'll look at Tarash for a second. Yeah, sure, we can do that. You sent that opening. Hopefully, it's still on the chat list. Yeah. Tarash wanted to take a look at this Steinitz for a second. I think it's an interesting game, and the link is in the chat. We can play through it. I'm just gonna go straight to the end game here. Yeah. I mean, this looks pretty good for white. But it doesn't really. It's a little bit different than the one you were talking about, where it's a little bit different than that one you were talking about, where white got the like you were talking about a game where the advancement was done on the opposite color of the bishop. With the knight here, yeah, yeah, good kingside penetration for sure. I mean, it's very high level play. Yep. Yeah, no, good demonstration. I sort of was drawing more from that. That is the motif, right? But I was drawing a little bit more from. Interesting. Yeah, it looks kind of similar, right? The same type of kingside movement into d6 or f6. Overall, yeah, pretty interesting. Thank you very much for sending that, Tarash, and it was a really cool game that we looked at of yours as well. I'm going to start my cybersecurity class, but we will have another stream at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all very much for sending the games. I just want to tell, I was just looking. I think we can get, yeah, so, yeah, no, awesome. All right, thanks, everyone. Have a good day. I'll be back at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all for joining. I'll see you later. Bye.